Hi, welcome. Today we shall try to discuss about an important environmental regulatory requirement, that is the preparation and submission of environmental statement. So this particular topic we shall try to discuss under following headings, that is, so what is it, the meaning we try to discuss, then to whom this particular requirement is applicable, we try to understand, then how to prepare and submit, right? So what is this environmental statement? Theoretically it is defined by ICC, that is International Chamber of Commerce. There are a number of jargon words. If you want to have glimpses of these theoretical aspects of environmental statement, you please refer to the YouTube lectures of Dr. Rajesh uh, from BMSID. Okay, so here we try to discuss about practical aspects. For this conceptual meaning itself is enough. This environmental statement is a self-declaration document prepared by the organization itself, just like any other statement prepared by the organization themselves. They can hire a second party to prepare it, but the content has to be verified and declared by the organization itself. It contains detailed and factual information. Just because it's a self-declaration document, we cannot produce wrong information in it. So factual information of the environmental impacts, both positive and negative. If there are any adverse impacts, it has to be there in the document. If there are any positive, beneficial or enhanced environmental performance, those things also has to be there in the document, prepared over a period. So generally in accordance with the financial year as per the law, and shared to the public and other interested parties like customers, certification bodies like ISO certification bodies, regulatory agencies like pollution control board, etc. Right? So who has to prepare and submit our applicability of this particular requirement? In India, as per law, every entity has to prepare this environmental statement and keep it. Any person can seek access to any entity's environmental statement through proper channel. The authorities, that is Pollution Control Board, may make it mandatory or compulsory for certain industries to prepare and submit their yearly environmental statements. So such requirements are specified in the consents as conditions. If a consent carries the condition to submit environmental statement, that is yearly environmental statement, then such industry mandatorily has to prepare and submit the environmental statement as per rule 14 of EPA, Indian EPA, not US EPA, that is agency in India, it is Act. So as previously we discussed, it is prepared by the organization itself, that is self-prepared. We cannot prepare as we wish. It has to be in a proper format, that is specified as Form 5 as scheduled to EPA. It has to be prepared for every financial year and submitted before September, that is end of September, in duplicate. One copy to the board and the another may be taken back as acknowledgement after getting seal, signature and the date. And here we come to the main part of our presentation, that is preparation and submission of environmental statement. Many states have the online option for this particular activity. This is to bring transparency, uh, ease of the administration, bureaucratic administration. So many reasons, let that be, but still many states are following the age-old offline mode. So here I'm trying to discuss this offline method so that so if you understand, it becomes easy for you to extrapolate the same method to the online option. So the case study I'm referring to case specific. So as I discussed previously, it has to be, rather the statement has to be in a prescribed format, that is as in form 5 of Environmental Protection Act. For this it's better to download an editable version of this form 5. So here I am using a Word format. The Word format may look like this. There are a number of parts. In part A, we require to provide general information. So the first one, name and address. So we have to fill here exactly how it is there in the consent. Same way we have to fill it here. So next requirement is industry category. So here what is mentioned is STC code. This we are not actually following at present. This has to be amended from the MOEF side. So what we give is, no, so the category type green, orange, red, and white category may not have to submit environmental statement like that. And the scale, no, so investment depending upon the investment, which scale it falls, then the sector number. So we have to provide these aspects. If we don't have these three aspects, no, so whatever data uh, we have to provide that, at least the category type, so that we can retrieve from the original consent. Then the production capacity, so the consent capacity, mm, we require to fill in this column. So for this again we may have to refer our original consent and the actual production during the statement period. Okay, so for this we may refer the production department or the sales department. There are chances that the industry may have more than one product. Under such circumstances we go on adding rows. The next requirement is year of establishment. This we have to fill, and the date of the last environmental statement submitted. So this also has to be filled. Remember, it should be before 30th September of the year. Okay. In part B, we require to provide material input data, that is related to water and raw material. Okay. So first requirement under part B is related to water consumption data. So this we have to provide in meter cube per day. Okay. So this is same as KLD, that is kiloliters per day. So these things we can fill taking out from our logbook. So remember the values what we provide here, it should reflect the consent quantity. So this should be less than the permitted consent quantity. Then product wise water consumption. This may not be applicable to many industries. Okay, so you refer your consent if there is a requirement specified in the consent condition related to product wise water consumption, then only you can fill. Otherwise you just leave it as not applicable. So this particular requirement is applicable to some industries. uh, you can refer to EPA also. There are certain industries for which the product wise water consumption is specified. For example, you take the steel industry, cement industry. Here there are specifications pertaining to water consumption per unit of product. Say per metric ton of steel, some X quantity of water is allowed to be used. So such industries only has to fill this requirement. So otherwise, so leave it as not applicable. In the next requirement, we require to provide raw material consumption data per unit of output, per unit of product. That is to produce 1 ton of say product. So how many tons of raw materials we consumed? So this data we have to fill here, rather provide here. So before providing or filling this particular portion, it is better to have our project report with us. In particular, material balance sheet with us. So list down the products that we are producing. So this we already have in our consent, so same has to be reflected here. So not more than the products what is there in the consent. So we can reduce it, but don't go beyond that. Okay, so to produce these products, what are the raw materials we consume? If we have more than one product, so we can go on adding the rows. So for a single product, we may use many raw materials. So product wise raw materials we have to provide. So for the same raw material may be used for two product production. So that time we have to enter differently. Okay, so to produce this product, so this raw material we using, and to produce 1 unit of this product, how much raw material we use, that we have to mention here. So this so we have to provide a trend. So previously how much we were using, now how much we are using. So this, though it looks simple, but a lot of complications are there while filling this. So when I go to audit, rather I was going to audit, so I put a lot of NCs on this particular requirement itself. Okay, so be careful while filling this. In part C, we require to provide information related to pollution, what we have generated and put into the environment. So this is one important section. In fact, part B, C, D, E, F. No? So all these are very important sections. You need to be very careful while filling these sections. Anything wrong, you may be caught hold of during the consent renewal, or no, so your statement itself may get rejected. Let that be. So be careful while filling these particular sections. Okay, so if you even if when you are careful, there are chances that you make mistakes. So if you come across a mistake at later stages, you can always submit a corrected copy by recalling the one which you already have submitted, like that. So then let's try to fill this part C section, that is let's provide this pollution details. So before filling this particular part, it is better to have our test certificates ready with us. So what all has to be tested, rather the monitoring requirements of your industry are required to be clearly understood by you. What all the parameters needs to be tested, what all the samples to be tested, what is the periodicity. So all these should be clear to you. So for this you have to clearly understand your consent conditions. So in the consent conditions, it clearly specifies what needs to be tested, for what all the parameters, and frequency also they will specify in the consent conditions. So accordingly you should have done, and those test certificates you please keep aside with you while filling this particular section. Remember, the testing should have been done by a third party accredited laboratory. Okay, so mm, the laboratory should have MOEF accredited laboratory. So earlier the requirement was only related to NABL accreditation. Now they changed it to MOEF accreditation, because so there are discrepancies. NABL you can get it for even 10 or even less number of parameters. So when under such circumstances, if you get the testing done for the parameter which is not accredited for NABL, so it doesn't hold good, but the label carries the NABL. There are a lot of discrepancies. So MOEF has changed it to MOEF accreditation itself uh, by changing it from NABL accreditation. Let that be. So the test certificates should have been issued by a MOEF accredited laboratory. So here is effluent related information, and down below we have emission related informations. If we have a single effluent treatment facility, so it's fine, it becomes easy to fill. If we have more than one, then we have to go on adding them by providing additional rows. Okay, so we have to make a list of these things, taking into account our consent condition. So we have to make another column. So here we require to provide respective concentrations. Okay. So this again can be derived from our consent condition. So these two columns should reflect our consent conditions, nothing less than that. Okay. So then these are our actual values. So these things we can so take out from our test certificates and enter here. So this column we require to make a small calculations. Okay. So here we try to provide quantity of pollutants discharged. So with respect to effluent, no? So BOD. So how much per day we released into the environment. So for this, so actual concentration, which is in milligram per liter. So this actual concentration has to be multiplied to a daily quantity of effluent that we generated. So we get this quantity of pollutant that we discharge. So this calculation can be so made to all the parameters and enter accordingly. So for this you can have an Excel sheet as well, so you can enter all the calculations in the boxes, and automatically the values will come. Okay. So coming to this stacks. Okay, so here we have to enter the quantity of flue gas and that is discharged. So this is there in your test certificates that you can retrieve and enter here. So this concentration rather so limits for that pollution control equipment APC. So this also may be there in the consent, or it may be there in your manual, or otherwise so you can have uh, uh, validated calculations, and from that calculation you can retry and enter here. So otherwise so it may leads to non-conformities in your ISO audits and other environmental audits. So well, let that be. So this value you can take out from your test certificates. So multiply to the quantity that you discharged per hour, and how much is the rather how many working hours are there, so that also has to be multiplied. For example here, so field 56 multiplied by 1000, that is the quantity of flue gas discharged per hour, hours, that is working hours. So that gives us this value. So if your industry is working for 24 hours, so you can multiply these the product of these two with 24, so to get this value. So this value is very important. With this value you can so derive your sustainability index, carbon footprint, your carbon credits. So many places you can use these values. Okay. And coming to this last column, so in general this the values meets the concentration specified limits. So if there is a variation, if it goes beyond the specified limits, So if it is well within, so it's fine, no need to fill this particular column. So if the values goes beyond the specified limits, what should have been done? So here, so as soon as you come across this variation, you should have filed a accident report to the pollution control board. There is a format, so in the format you should have reported the incident with the reasons and the CAPA, that is corrective and preventive action, what you have taken. So those things has to be reported here. So with this, so this particular part C will be complete. Part D is related to hazardous waste. Uh, though the heading is hazardous waste, uh, it also includes certain other types of waste, because the rule, that is applicable rule, has got amended in 2016 as hazardous and other type of waste. So this particular part has to be amended from MOEF side. So let that be. So as per our requirement, so we require to provide information related to hazardous as well as certain other types of waste as listed in the schedule to hazardous and other waste rule 2016 version. Okay, like waste like so metal scraps, MS metal scrap, copper metal scrap, so many other things. Okay, so another point, there are certain industries they may mandatorily require to take authorization for managing their hazardous and other waste. So though it is applicable or not, it is better to take the authorization. So you don't have to spend money because there is no fees for authorization. So just file an application, and there are better chances that you will get the authorization. If you have the authorization, it becomes easy for you to convey and convince the interested parties, which may be legal or so auditors or clients, whoever may be. So if you have authorization, it becomes easy for you. Okay, so this column, so here we require to make a list of our waste. So from process, what are the waste we generated, to which category this waste falls. So for this you may refer to schedule to our hazardous and other waste rule, so they are provided, so that can be entered here. Then from pollution control facilities, like ETP, STP, from air pollution control equipments like baghouse filters, scrubbers. There are things like filters, sand filter, multimedia filters, carbon filters. So we get different types of waste from our pollution control facilities also. That also has to be listed here, and then enter the quantities deriving from your logbook. Okay, so previously how much you were generating, and at present, that is current year, how much you generated. This section is related to solid waste other than hazardous and other wastes which we discussed previously. Okay, so these wastes has to be listed here. From process, whatever waste we generate has to be segregated at least as biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So otherwise, the segregation should be as per the consent conditions. So these values can be derived from our logbook and enter here. So over a period of time, the trend should be like so waste generation should be reduced. So there should be a decrease in the wastage quantity. So if at all there is a deviation from the requirement, the authorities may ask for an explanation. We may require to answer to that. We may have to visit. They may come and inspect. So many so cumbersome activities. So to avoid or eliminate such hassles, it is better to identify ourselves the deviations and find out the reason and take appropriate corrective and preventive actions. If you want to elaborate on this, no, so you can provide annexures as well to this particular deviations. So moving ahead, from pollution control facilities, if at all we are generating any solid waste other than previously discussed, so this again has to be segregated and the quantity requires to be entered. So then the quantity recycled or reused. There are provisions for recycling or reutilization of these wastes. For example, this biodegradable waste can be subjected to vermicomposting. So this vermicompost can be used for gardening as manure. Okay, so such type of recycling or reutilization quantity requires to be mentioned here. Okay. So in this particular section, we require to provide information related to solid waste. So all types of solid waste. It includes hazardous, biomedical, e-waste, and also non-hazardous waste. So in this column, let's classify our solid waste and put. And in this column, let's give information related to qualitative and quantitative characteristics. That is, so what is the waste we produce, in which form we produce, how much we produce, and how we dispose or how we manage those individual types of waste. This information has to be provided in this column. So first, rather, before filling this, so it's better to keep with fillings related to our waste. So for hazardous waste, we have yearly filings for plastic waste, biomedical waste, e-waste. So respective, filings we will be having. So if we keep those filings with us while filling this particular section, it becomes very easy. And also, so it's necessary to provide or rather enclose a copy of those filings with this form 5 while filing this. So first one, let it be so hazardous waste. So you require to go on mentioning the hazardous waste that your industry produces, in which form it produces, how much it produces, how we dispose, right? So the disposal practice is particular to particular type of waste. Okay, so remember this. So we cannot provide wrong informations. So this has to be provided for all types of waste. Coming to these additional sections, these are quite voluntary in nature. You may leave them as such without filling anything. However, if you are asked for some activity to be implemented, that time it becomes mandatory. Okay, so suppose if you are doing painting activity, you are being asked to do it in a paint booth with pollution control equipments and all. So that component you have to fill here. Okay. Apart from that, so if you are going to or planning to claim CER, CSR, so that time you require to fill these components. And finding these additional measures, so it's a bit cumbersome, so it's a bit tough activity. You have to do a complete assessment of your unit. So you have to find out the gaps, you have to find out the opportunities for improvements, and then do a proper planning. So these things are a bit tougher part, and for this it's better to take consultant units help. There are a number of environmental service providers. They will assist you in this particular assessment part. So with the help of those assessment entities, so you can find out where the gap is and where the opportunities for improvement, and depending upon the financial status of the unit, you can develop relevant environmental plans, and those things plans can be annexed to this statement, right? So then, no, so coming to this component, no, so suppose in the previous year we have mentioned some proposals. So the status of the proposals can be put here. No? So again, for this also, uh, you can take the help of consultants, or if you are competent, or if you know this, you can do on your own. Not a problem. So then additional things, if at all you have something, so in that particular statement period, so you can go on listing them. And this is about how to prepare our statement, and now we shall try to see how we require to file it. Okay, so make 3 copies of the statement that we prepared. uh, Take the signature and seal of the top management on all 3 copies. Make a covering letter, no? So covering letter can be like this. Okay, so enclose these, so form 5, and then recent test reports, uh, any additional filings like hazardous waste filings, biomedical waste filings, e-waste filings, if at all they are applicable to you, so enclose them with them. Then 2 copies you submit to the pollution of this covering letter. You take the acknowledgement, and this acknowledgement copy and the additional leftover statement copy you can keep in your file as a office copy. Okay, uh, that completes the preparation and submission of your statement, environmental statement. Okay,